Moving on, still rushing because I want to have at least 20 minutes for the DAG demos. Service account. Bottom line, you want to run some services that require network access. If you run a service, it can run using several options. First one, if it runs as a local system account or local service or any local account on a given machine. The problem is it doesn't have access to any network resources. If you want any network activities, you can't achieve them with using a local account. So what everybody does, you create a service account in Active Directory. Basically, you name it SQL service or IIS worker or whatever you call it. You set to password never expire because you don't want your service to expire your password and then stop working after that. And then you fire off the service using that account. It has network permissions. It can work. And then you forget about it forever. And you never change its password. How many of you here have changed your service account passwords in the last 6 months? I don't believe you, sir. OK, cool. So you are a very rare exception because typically the story is that you create a service account and never change its password. So administrators come and go, and your password remains the same. I don't see the participants from one specific company, but I was on a customer site and they asked me, we want to change the administrator's password. I'm like, which administrators? And they say like, the administrator's password. I'm like, okay, go ahead, change it. And I was like, we can't because it's used by some services out there. We don't know who uses it. I'm like, good job. And I'm due sorry if I did offend somebody in the public right now. Uncontrolled use of these accounts. You give the service account and the password to an application developer or to an app admin, and then you basically don't know how many users now use this account. Because he could have set it up on 15 different machines and you would never find out if you wouldn't look into the security logs, which you don't. Now, managed service accounts, first introduced in Server 2008 R2. Automatic password management. Basically, you create a service account in Active Directory, and you configure it, and you say that, hey, okay, this service account can be used on this server. And then it would be the responsibility of that application server to manage its password. You never went into the password business. You knew the password. It was like a 128-character string, which you never knew. It was all the job of the target server to manage its password and to update its password periodically. Now, the problem was with managed service account that you could only run a service on a single machine. So say you have an IIS farm of 10 servers, you couldn't create a single account to use on each 10 of them. You had to create separate accounts for each server, which was a big problem with MSAs, which eventually got resolved, yay, in GMSAs. So it's a very similar technology. You create a service account, and then you say who is allowed to use this account, which is cool because then you can control who can launch applications for this account. Let me quickly demo this. This is very short. It's pre-made. It's not pre-recorded like Dave's, but it's pre-made. So you kind of feel cheated, but not fully. A couple of actions you need to do here. You need to create a root key. The only way you can create a service account is using a PowerShell command line. Things I'm specifying here. DNS hostname, the name of my machine, of my farm that I'm going to be using. And then this is the important part. Who is allowed to use this account? Principals allowed to retrieve managed password. And I say IIS farm. And IIS farm is actually just a group in Active Directory. Let me go into the old school Active Directory users and computers. There's the Contoso groups. IIS farm is just a security group, and there are two members in that group, the 2012 node and 2012 node 2. I say, okay, go ahead, create this account and name this account GMSA1. It's going to launch this now. Fingers crossed. Yep, it worked. And now I have a managed service account called GMSA1. And the only two people, the only two machines allowed to use this account are node 1 and 2 because they're members of the IIS farm. So let's switch to them. Actually, I'm going to do this as a slightly different test. So there's my Windows 8 client. And I have written, I actually can code, I've written a little application that says, hello world. It's very, very polite. And it says, where is it running? And it says the name, it states the credentials which it is using for operation. So by default, applications run in a default app pool, which is a local account local to the IIS server on which it is running. So now on both of my nodes, on 2012 node 1 and on 2012 node 2, it is running using the default app pool identity. So I want to go ahead and change that. Go to node 1, and then again note how easy all of that is. Just a couple of pre-recorded commands, nothing more. We go into our IIS, and IIS is not my strength, but just to demo this out. There's my default app pool, which I use for my applications. I go to advanced settings, and over here we can see the identity. Which identity are we using to host our IIS applications? What account are we going to be using? I can say over here, hey, I want to use Contoso GMSA1. I don't specify a password, I just click OK. Yeah. GMSA $1, because that's a special account. And it says, all right, whatever. It lets me do that. I'm just going to recycle the operation on node 2. Put the dollar in node 2. Application pools. I've never done this before. Settings, application pool identity. Ouch. And Contoso. Again, hit OK, recycle the application pool. And now if I go to my client and I refresh that web page of mine, works. You can actually see that now on both of the nodes, the IIS application is running under domain credentials. Did I specify the password anywhere? No. The password is a 127-character long string which changes every 30 days. Domain controllers calculate this password and then just give to the nodes. If I now take 2012 node 3 and try to configure the IIS application pool there, it will not work. Because the only two principals that are allowed to retrieve password is node 1 and 2, as you've seen in the security group membership.
Would there be an issue where an application was started and asked you for the use of password for the service account?
It identifies that it is a service account. It will not ask you a password, if I got your question right. So it identifies that this is a special account. So it either works or it doesn't. Now if I go to DC1 and try to configure any service there to use that service account, it will fail to start saying there's a logon problem because it's not allowed to get the password for that account. And this is how you can control who is actually allowed to use it. If the server gets compromised, just remove them from the list there of allowed principals and off you go. And your password is not compromised. Good, so GMSAs are only supported on 2012 servers. So you need to have a 2012 domain controller, you need to have a 2012 server in order for this to work. As far as the application goes, this is supported, and now let me recite this, and I may be wrong, it's supported scheduled tasks, IIS application pools, SQL. I think so far it's not supported for clusters, but it may get supported in the future, near future, hopefully. But it's supported for a number of useful applications already. So go ahead, check with the product group if you try to implement something tricky with a group managed service accounts. But this is a good replacement for your existing accounts whose password haven't changed for years and years. And you can get a list of those accounts through Active Directory Administrative Center. Just search for all accounts whose password hasn't changed for more than, I don't know, years. You'll be surprised. Your boss is in that list. Sorry for any bosses sitting in the room.